Welcome in, Lux Kids parents, to another episode of Called to Parent. Last month, you had two different hosts, so it's going to sound a little bit different this month, but I hope that that's okay. I'm Pastor Druzy, Pastor Dalton, the community and discipleship pastor here at Lux, and I'm joined by my beautiful, amazing, and person that I sprung this podcast on, my wife, Emily.
Hello, guys. I'm glad to be here on Jen's podcast.
That's right. Jen's podcast, breaking numbers past Taylor Swift's podcast. But no, this podcast is going to be a great time. We're excited about it at Lux Kids. I know we've been making a lot of moves to try to get resources and tools in your hand, and this podcast is just one of those. The reason why we're doing it once a month, just like Mark said, is because we want to kind of continue on this path of studying ourselves as parents, but also using this book by a man named Paul David Tripp as our guideline, so to say. And the book is called 14 Gospel Principles of Parenting. So we're going to have a mix of conversation around the second chapter on grace today, but also we're going to be sharing some experiences from our own life, just as Jen and Mark did in the first chapter, as they talked about the importance of being ambassadors for Christ, which is taken from 2 Corinthians 5 for our kids. So we're going to jump right in. I'm excited about it. Emily, how's your week been, though? Good.
It has been much better on the tail end. Had some fun medical things, but we're all good now. So thankful for grace in that, and getting to do this.
Yeah, for sure. Not only did I ask you to do a podcast, but then 18 mosquitoes from hell, I think, attacked you this
I'm
week.
pretty sure that they're the ones that they used in Jurassic Park, that they had the dinosaur DNA in them also.
That's right. I always wondered how they got just enough of the DNA in it. It's because they were tankers.
Yeah,
they were massive
exactly.
mosquitoes. That's awesome. Well, hey, I'm excited. We were studying the book together and talking about it. And I think the theme for this episode is going to be one that, to be honest, is both challenging and just encouraging, because grace is a topic that I think is simple, but also is incredibly deep in a way that I think we could overlook it sometimes. Like it's so simple that like we appreciate it, but we also tend to overlook it. But
Yeah.
I want to start off real quick. One of the pages in the book had this quote, and I thought this was really cool. It's about parenting. It says, "There's nothing more important to consistent, faithful, patient, loving, and effective parenting than to understand what God has given you in the grace of his Son, the Lord Jesus Christ." So with that, I kind of want to talk to you about this question. Why do you think Paul Tripp uses this? He calls this chapter the most important one in the book, this topic of grace.
Yeah, I know grace is talked about throughout the entirety of the book, and I think it's because it's a book on gospel principles, and you can't have the gospel without grace. Grace is such an important key point of that. And we can't try to be ambassadors for our kids in that if we don't also consider the grace that we have from Christ is what allows the gospel to be what it is.
No, that's so good. And I love that idea because Paul starts right at the beginning of the chapter, and something that personally I struggle with myself, this idea of talking about past, future, and present grace, right? So he uses this idea of most Christian parents have a fairly good understanding of past grace, meaning like we were saved because of the cross, we received grace there. The future grace, talking about the grace we receive that allows us to live with God for eternity. But it's this understanding, this present grace, this here and now grace that is there for not only our kids, but for us. And that was kind of the crazy thing about this chapter. And when I think about grace is I try to think of it as a parent about my kids, but really, man, I need to grasp it myself. And I think you did agree.
Yeah. I did laugh though, like talking about the present grace part is it made me think of like cheesy mugs that we'll have. Like I think we think about present grace, but it's like, oh, running on coffee and God's grace. And it's kind of like a toss away thing that we kind of just like say it, but we don't always let it sit in our hearts and really take hold of us and be like, no, I actually do need grace every single day to get through my job, to get through parenting, to get through making dinner sometimes, because that dinner time hour can be rough.
Yeah, it's definitely. We should probably give some background of our family. I know Mark and Jen did that. That might help understand the context. So you want to describe our kids for us?
Yeah, so we have our oldest, Ezra. He is 12 years old, and he
Crazy.
is yeah, I know. He's really starting to get into that middle school age, which for us has been super fun because we've been in youth ministry for a while, and there is all these, like, things that parents would come to us and talk to us about, and we would kinda get to, like, walk through them with that, and now we're getting to see those same things happen, and it's like, "Oh, well, the things that we told those people also apply to us." Like, he's not just being a doofus, it's just part of him being a middle school boy, and it's great.
Yeah, today I even had to show him some grace in the fact that I was trying to carry on a conversation as you do with your kids, especially when they're teenagers. And as he's coming into that, I was like, "Hey, bro," asking him, what he's doing. He's watching this YouTuber, and I was like, "That's awesome, man!" Like he's one of the approved YouTubers in our house, and I was like, "That's awesome, man. Is he still doing the same kind of stuff that he normally does?" And is he doing something new? And Ezra's response was, "Yeah." And I was like,
Cool.
"Sick. That's a great." So like, yeah is all I get. So we
Yeah,
expounded on that, but I had to
but
show a little grace because I could hear my dad coming in and being like, "You don't say yeah to your dad."
yeah, it's fun though. But he's always been a
He's a
super
great kid.
smart kid. He loves video games. He loves tech stuff, all of that. So it's been fun to get to watch him come alongside what Dalton's doing with Lux and kind of see how that all works and what that looks like.
Totally.
But then our second is Addison. She is 10. She is our very creative child, and
Mm,
also being oldest daughter, I think that she takes on a lot of the mom role, even though we try not to push it on her, but I think she naturally just kind of gears towards trying to take care of everybody else and making sure that things get done, when they need to be.
totally. Yeah, and Addie is probably, you would say, probably the most like me, I would
Mhm.
think.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, she's super confident, and I
Mhm.
mean this. She's the
Very
most
confident.
confident. She's
I'll
probably our
try to compliment her and be like, "Addie, that's a really nice drawing." And she goes, "Yeah, I know." I'm like, "Okay, good."
glad you know. She even came up to me a couple weeks ago and she was like, "Dad, man, we were talking to just some other friends. We have her in a Sunday school group kind of thing, and she was like, I was just talking to some friends and my teacher, and I don't know, like we were talking about humility, and it's not something I struggle with, and I was just laughing so hard because that's me, which means she's gonna struggle a lot with pride as she gets
Mhm.
older. But
Yeah.
she's a great kid. I love Addison.
Yeah, she's a lot of fun.
So number three,
It's Joanna.
yes.
Joanna is probably the sweetest, most thoughtful kid that
Mm,
I have ever met, that she is always putting other people ahead of herself and what she wants, to the point where we sometimes have to tell her, like, "No, it's okay if you pick which bag of chips you want first," or whatever it is, because she's always trying to think about other people and, just put them above herself, which has been really sweet to see, and I see some of myself in that
mm,
too, so I try to kinda protect her and help her learn early on that she can still stand her ground and still be kind and thoughtful of other people, but
yeah.
she's super fun. She's also incredibly hilarious.
She is the funniest kid. And so, a little bit background on our kids. I have ADHD. Our son Ezra is on the spectrum, autism,
Mhm.
and Addison has ADHD. And then our youngest is on the spectrum, who we'll
Mhm.
introduce here in a second. Emily somewhere on the vast majority of
We
the
got a little
rainbow of all that.
neurodivergency going
Right,
on.
right. We got a lot of it, but Joanna is probably our, our neurotypical kid, and in that way, she seems really kind of weird to the rest of us. And we joke about it all the time, like you're the normal kid,
Mhm.
and she goes, "Yeah, I am." But she's really funny. She's the kid that just like watches something and recalls it out of nowhere at the right time,
Her
and she's
timing is
so
impeccable.
freaking funny. And then we have our Sour Patch Kid, which is Sloan.
Yes. Sloan, like we said, she is also on the spectrum, and that has really
She's
changed.
3.
Yes, she's 3. She is an absolute joy. She is all I mean, not always, she's not always sunny, but she does bring a lot of joy whenever she is in happy moods and doing good with that. But she can also be a little bit more challenging.
Mm,
She has definitely been the one that has kinda helped or forced, I guess, me to kinda change how we look at parenting, and has really had us, have to grow in how we think about things and just the way that we navigate parenting her. And a lot of that has required a lot more grace, which has been a good growing point, but
mm.
Yeah, she's great, she's hilarious. She also really enjoys movies and recalling things, and, right now she's really big into, just all kinds of different things.
She
Yeah,
loves Studio Ghibli
she
movies,
does love Studio
and
Ghibli movies.
she calls them by the funniest things. Like,
Mhm. Mommy,
she
Daddy Turned to Pigs is one of her favorites,
Spirited
Spirited
Away,
Away.
if you didn't guess that, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's
but
so good.
yeah, she's great.
It is. Yeah, it's something that so our next topic, this transitions really well into this idea as we think about our 4 kids. We've been married for 13 years. Man, it is incredibly hard to sometimes walk with 4 other human beings, let alone our
Mhm,
spouses, right? To walk with them and to see them growing and to see their differences and to be honest, see our differences
mhm.
and how frustrating it could be when we think of something some way and they think of something some way.
Oh, yeah.
And I love the topic that Paul talks about how God doesn't call able parents, he calls
Mhm.
willing ones.
Yeah.
He uses this quote: none of us have this natural storehouse of wisdom, strength, patience, mercy, and perseverance that every parent needs. Independent ability, like independent righteousness, is a delusion. So, with that, I love this question of how has parenting exposed your weakness and dependence on God? I'll talk about it after you do.
Mm. Um, I I specifically with Sloan, and because she's our youngest, she's 3, that's still very much
It's easy for us to
a
think about it too because we're in it.
hands-on, day to day, hour by hour, minute by minute, having to guide and correct and help with her. But just realizing that there's a lot of things that she does that are very frustrating.
Mm,
Um, but I think also remembering that they aren't always sinful things, and I think that's something that we
mm,
kind of shifted our mindset in a few years ago in parenting, is that there's a lot of times that there's things that kids do that are annoying to us or they're inconvenient to us, but it's not necessarily that it's being sinful, it's just that they're just being kids, and so having to check myself when she's doing things that might be driving me crazy, and to be like, "Okay, is this something that yes, I need to make sure that she's staying safe, that she's not destroying things, that she's
right.
not doing that." Um, but I also have to just watch that I'm not the one that is getting frustrated, and to kinda check my patience with that.
Yeah, that's something Mark and Jen actually I talked about last week that like sometimes as Christian parents, we could over spiritualize something, right? Like everything is spiritual. It's all connected back
Yeah.
to creation. It's connected back to who God made us to be. But sometimes we make things so much deeper than they are.
Mhm.
And we get frustrated because we're like, oh, the sinfulness of our kids. But really, it's more probably the sinfulness of us
Yes.
and our pride in that
Yeah.
they're getting in our way
Mhm.
or ignore or messing up our comfortability and things
Mhm.
like that. I've personally, that's where something I think having kids and this idea of grace, man, I've really seen and it's exposed a lot in me as a person and as a man and how selfish I am.
Mm.
Like that's something that I think over the last 12 years with Ezra being our oldest, all the way down to Sloan, our youngest,
Mhm.
I've just noticed at times like, and even when it comes time to like working really hard and coming home and hanging out with you guys, and this was before Lux,
Mhm.
but like wanting to spend time and veg and game and things, and that being okay, but also at the same time realizing that you guys needed time from me and things,
Yeah.
and just how selfish I could
Mhm.
be at times because I wanted what I wanted, not what was always
Mhm.
what was best for all of you guys.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's easy too to get in your mind of like we see social media and stuff too, like what the perfect house is supposed to look like, perfect kids are supposed to look like. And so then it's easy to get frustrated when things
Mm,
are a mess. And that's just like life is messy
mm,
and that happens. And I'm not saying like live in squalor or anything, but like understand that living with kids is gonna be messy and that's okay. And you don't have to hold yourself up to that higher standard, which I mean honestly, this a lot of reading through this has been kind of a relief to realize that like God doesn't call perfect people. He kinda equips us for that, and it kinda takes a little bit of the, like, pressure, I guess, off to
mm.
know that, like, I don't have to be perfect, to do what it is that God is calling me to do.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think overall, that's something that I hear a lot of parents. just as a whole, they talk about like, oh man, I just want to do this or do this. Otherwise, I'm not a good parent. I don't read my kids a book every night,
Mhm.
and tuck them in every night and pray with them, get on my knees and pray with them right then and there. Or I don't wake every morning making them breakfast and worshiping with them. Like,
Mhm.
man, it is so hard to fall into that cyclical like attitude of we have to do this to be a good Christian
Mhm.
parent.
Yeah,
And that's really difficult. And this topic of grace not only hits there because to be honest, like it's not everybody, it's not the way every family functions, right? Like
Mhm.
our kids love the Lord,
Yeah,
but we don't do everything that quote unquote good Christians should do or don't do.
for
And
sure.
that's okay because you know what? Some families need to do those things, but for our family, that's just not the way it functions, right?
Mhm.
I think we have another question.
Mhm.
Can you share a moment? Here, I got you for it. Can you share a moment where you clearly saw God meet you in your inability? I have one if you want me to
Okay.
start.
Yeah. Yeah, you go
So a
ahead.
couple years back, Ezra, and this is going to be kind of a hot topic because Roblox is in the news right now. But a couple years ago, we were at our house in Indiana, and we noticed that our son, because the school allowed them to do this, had logged into Roblox on
I
his
think it was during
own.
COVID, and so he had his laptop at home
Yeah,
because
he
we were
had a
doing from
school.
home
Yep.
schooling.
Yep, and that was not something that we allowed, and he had done it in secret, and man, I just wanted to explode on that kid. Like, I
Mhm.
was so frustrated, like, he didn't understand the danger of that. There was so much there that potentially he could have gotten into,
Mhm.
and I just remember, like, the Spirit, like, calming me and being like, "Whoa, like, how often do you hide things? Like,
Mhm.
I see these things too, and I show you grace,
Mhm.
but how often do you hide your sin and hide things that you know you're not supposed to do? And I still love you and still give you grace." So it was a really cool moment for me in my
Mhm.
inability to see God step in
Mhm.
and to direct the situation because I just wanted, I mean, I don't even 5 years ago, he's what, seventh grade? I mean, he would have been in second grade.
Yeah.
Super smart kid, able to do all this on his own,
Mhm.
but like not what we want as parents. We don't
No.
want them sneaking
And
around
he
getting
and
on
he's not
websites they
typically a
shouldn't.
kid that tries to hide things.
Totally.
He's usually very upfront about things. So that's why it was such like
And the funny thing
a
is
weird
he's
thing.
sneaking on to play math games, right? This is
Right.
Ezra, right? Like he's sneaking on Roblox to play math games. All that in context, I still was really upset. And a lot of it, I just needed to be a little more patient and things. And God
Mhm.
called me to that and I could feel that. But it was a good learning moment for me.
Yeah,
What about
definitely.
you?
Um, I always have a hard time thinking of specific moments. And I think it's just the way that my brain has been wired is that I try not to hang on to those things, which is
No, that's great.
a good thing, but it makes it harder to then talk about things in the past. But I know just as a whole, I can see as I have progressed in being a mom. I remember like, when Ezra and Addie were younger, I had a much shorter temper, and
Mhm.
I would get a lot more upset about things nonstop and just yelling at them. Um, and I think a lot of that is just kind of what I saw
Yep.
growing up, but I didn't want to carry that into our kids, and parenting them. But yeah, just I think that whenever we had that kind of mental shift about like if it's just being an inconvenience versus being sin, is that that helped me to really kind of be able to take a breath and be like, all right, God, is this something that like is because I think that there are is times to get upset. Like when you're trying to protect your kid about something like the Roblox thing, like it's okay to get upset about that because
My upsetness was not a righteous
right.
upsetness,
But
but
like
yeah, there are times where it's okay
yes,
to be
if
upset
your
about
kids are
things.
running with scissors or towards the street, like, yes, that's okay. They're in danger. That's something to be upset about, sure.
Yep.
But I was getting upset about just, like, snack wrappers that were left on the floor or buckets of blocks that are dumped out or, if they spilled a drink and, like, that's an accident. That's not something that it needs to be
Or
getting
it's
upset
something we
about.
need to correct, and if we have corrected it, then maybe there's a conversation
Right.
there, but yeah, no, I feel that. There's a lot of moments like that.
But I definitely think that over the years, I have seen how God's grace has allowed me to take that moment of pause before I get frustrated or before I explode and to kinda really, like, calm myself down, ask God to help me to stay calm and not get frustrated with it. So that's kinda how I've seen God's grace working through that.
Yeah, I love that. God shows us our weakness, and he's not just exposing our limits,
Mhm.
but he exposes our hearts. And that's really, I think, what this whole book is about as a parent is exposing our heart, because our
Mhm.
heart really does drive so much of this, right?
Yeah.
The Bible uses the heart, the mind, the body, all of these things, the soul, interchangeably in different ways to talk about how our interaction with faith is in our day-to-day life.
Mhm.
But Tripp shares one of the hardest lessons he learned was how much his own self-righteousness shaped his parenting. So I kind of want to dig into that. He says in page 42, I'm more like my children than unlike them. Ouch. Instead of approaching them with self righteous outrage, I moved towards them as a sinner in need of grace, needing to confront a sinner in need of grace.
Mhm.
That is a gut punch as a parent, because how often, at least in my own life, I could speak a little bit on you, but I'm not going to call you out because you could call me out just as much. How often do we take for granted the maturity that we've gained over the years, that
Oh,
James
yeah.
style of like perseverance, maturity? We've
Mhm.
we've grown, we've started to learn how in so many ways to put off our old self, put on our new self. But we too also are still in need of
Oh,
God's
yeah.
grace. We too are still working through things.
Mhm.
Yet somehow we kind of self-righteously, like Pharisees, point the gun at our kids and
Yeah.
say, you're the problem,
Yeah.
not me. I never mess up. I
Yeah.
never sin.
Yeah. No, there's this kind of reminded me of a time that, I was at Target with all 3 of the girls,
Mm,
and I think we had just, like, the day before or something, they had all gotten some kind of small, like, I don't know, $10 gift or what, not gift, but $10 toy or book or something,
yep.
from Barnes& and Noble, and then the next day we were at Target and we were trying to get some things that we needed, and all of the girls just kept asking for things and wanting things and complaining that they didn't have things, and I could feel myself starting to get really frustrated by that because 'cause I'm like, "Why can't you just be thankful for the things that you have that we already got you?" And I'm like, "Oh." As soon as I said it in my brain, I was like, "I am not always thankful for the things that I have, and I can also see
Mm,
myself walking through Target and wanting more than what I have and not just being appreciative of the things that I have." The difference is that I have the maturity to not voice it out loud as we're
totally.
walking through Target and, saying, "Oh, I want this. Oh, I want to buy these pillows," or whatever it is that, I as an adult would want to buy. Um, but yeah, it was kinda just thinking back to this how I'm very much like my kids and being, wanting for things or materialistic at times. And I think that it's good when we can remember those things and to remember that the things that they're doing and saying aren't any different than what we do or say. We just do them in our brains usually.
Yeah, and, the Bible's pretty clear that,
That counts
thinking the
just as
thing is
much.
just as much. So, yeah, that's something for me too. This idea of realizing I'm like them has been a really helpful thing to approach conversations with them, right?
Yeah.
Like, I especially as our kids have gotten older, I've been able to sit down with them and relate to them,
Yeah.
my own issues and my own sinfulness, and be able
Mhm.
to talk into that, like,
Yeah.
their lives, and say, "You know what? That is just like you. I
Mhm.
struggle with this just like you," because I don't want them to hear that their parents are perfect.
Yeah, well,
I
and
think I
Paul even talks about that, how, like, kids don't wanna have perfect parents because perfect parents think that they can do everything, that they don't need grace, and they don't need that forgiveness and help from God. And kids want to see that we are also human and that we also need that grace from God.
Yep. Yeah, and I grew up in a pretty broken home at times, but I love my mom, I love my dad, I love my stepdad. My heart has really worked through a lot of the things as I've gotten older. I'm still working through some things,
Yeah.
but at the same time, forgiveness from my parents and grace from my parents wasn't always there. There
Mhm.
were times where I could think back, but as you are, I don't want to mimic everything. I want to mimic so many things. Like, they
Right.
taught me how to work hard, they taught me how to love people in a lot of ways, like how to
Mhm.
do certain things, how to have manners and things like that,
Yeah.
and I want our kids to have those same things. But there's also a lot of things, especially from a Christian perspective. My household wasn't always
Right.
following God.
Yeah.
I want to raise our kids up in the way they should go.
Mhm.
And I want them to love the Lord. And through that, they need to understand that they're not perfect and they need Jesus more today
Mhm.
than they ever have.
Yeah.
And that's something to even talking to my grandpa, who's like my favorite man in this world. My
Yes.
grandpa
I
Austin,
thought
our
about him a lot during
yeah,
this chapter.
yeah, our youngest daughter Sloan, her middle name's Austin after him, but he is like the man. I love him, and he's been going through a lot of health issues this year, so it's been hard to see him. But I call him, and he's in his 80s, and it is just, man, what a powerful testimony to be able to talk to him. I mean, all he wants to talk about is the Lord, and we talk about faith, and we talk about where we're at, and it's so funny just to be able to talk to him and be
Mhm.
like, yeah, Dalton, I'm still growing. I realize I'm so much more in sin today than ever before. As I get closer to Jesus, I realize I need him more.
Mhm.
And to us, like I'm 35, he's in his 80s. I'm like, man, you should feel closer to Jesus, right? And he's like, I feel like I need to be on my knees more now than ever
Yeah.
before. So it's a cool thing to share that from him to me, but
Mhm.
share that with my kids and be
Yeah.
like, guys, I hear you. I hear how hard this is. Too want to at times throw things at your siblings or your mom and get frustrated. I don't do that. But like I get it. But at the same time, like realizing our place with Jesus and realizing how he wants us to change and love people and care for people
Mhm.
even in the midst of frustration
Yeah.
is so important. So
Yeah.
it's taught me a lot of humility.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, honesty is sets us up though for one of the practical examples of the book, and I really love this example. It's this bowl of water example, and it's cool because it's like a simple picture, and it really drives home this idea of parenting in my mind. That doesn't just reveal our kids' hearts, but it reveals ours. And that's a big thing to reveal our hearts as well. So I'm going to give us this example. I think this is really cool. He talks about imagine holding a bowl of water. And if you shake it hard, of course, water's going to splash out. Now I see our 3-year-old carrying ramen through our kitchen, spilling ramen stuff
Mhm.
everywhere,
Yeah.
right? Right. So you hold this bowl of water and you're shaking it and water's splashing out. And you might say, well, it's spilled out because you shook it. And logic would tell you, that's true, but it's only partly true. The deeper reasoning, water came out, is because water was in the bowl. If the bowl had been full of milk, no matter how hard I shook it, milk, not water, would have spilled. Parenting, Paul says, works the same way. When our kids push our buttons or we are shaken by their sin, rebellion, or foolishness, what comes out of us as parenting, our words, our tone, our attitude, was already inside of us.
Mhm.
Parenting doesn't cause those things.
Mhm.
It reveals them.
Well, I think that we see that a lot in the Bible that it talks about that what's inside your heart is what's going to come out.
Mm,
And I think that that is even more so, I mean, not even more so true, but just also true with parenting, that whatever you have in your heart, if you're already angry and frustrated, that's what's going to come out. If you are already being selfish, then that's what's going to come out as your kids kind of put you into a pressure cooker situation sometimes. That there's, just added stress with that. So that's why I think it's so important that we are, seeking God's grace and asking him to help transform our hearts and to bring us closer to him so that as our hearts are changing, what comes out of us is going to be more God honoring.
yeah, I think that's an important point to make. And I think it's important too. And I found this in my own life that in those moments where I'm feeling really shaken and I could tell
Mhm.
that now, not all the time do I stop and pause, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to paint myself as the parent that always stops and pause. There are times where I explode, and there are
Yeah.
times where, man, both Emily and I are not as much exploders. We're more walk away kind of people,
Mhm.
but then that isn't helpful either, right? Like walking away, getting frustrated, walking away and not actually talking to our kids about what happened or what happened within us.
Mhm.
But I have found that it's in those moments when I do pause or in the
Yeah.
aftermath where the Holy Spirit, if I'm willing to be obedient in that, and I'm not always, but when I'm willing to be obedient in hearing him, I usually am able to pause and be like, okay,
Yeah.
God, let me breathe real quick.
Mhm.
Right. Like let me pause and God, I need help in this. Cause
Yeah.
I don't exactly know how I should go about this,
Mhm.
but I know the way I want to go about it is not good.
Yeah,
And it's not good for them and it's not good for me.
right.
So,
Well, and I think that, it's something that it takes intentionality with
mm,
that. It's not something that is just easy to do because there are times that I'm in the midst of those, wanting to explode kind of parenting moments where I'm just so frustrated or so overstimulated by everything that's going on that it seems easier in the moment to just yell at them and be like, "Why would you guys do this? Why are you making a mess? Why is this all over the place?" Um and it takes being very intentional and very aware, and it takes extra time. It takes more time to sit there and explain to them, "Okay, this is why we don't do XYZ. This is why
mm.
we can't just hit our sister." It's God created your sister. God loves your sister. He wants you to take care of your sister. That takes a lot more time, and it's not as convenient. And sometimes that's hard because, again, back to what's in my heart is I wanna be selfish. I wanna get on moving on with my day and what I have to do. I need to go cook dinner or do dishes or whatever, but sitting down with them in those moments is far more important than any of those other things that I have going on.
Yeah, I've seen you actually walk that really well. I remember one time we were shopping and one of our kids, I don't remember who, was acting up. And I just remember you looking at me and not threatening the kid or anything, just taking them out of the situation and
Mhm.
just saying, "Hey, you guys finish shopping." And then the sad part is like I knew you were excited about shopping at this
Yeah.
place. I don't even remember where we're at. I just remember it being like a our family loves to just window shop. So we go out together, we just walk around a store, usually Target, and we just shop. But I remember this kid was struggling, which whatever our kids it was. And I just remember Emily just taking a moment and realizing that this kid needed some time with her and alone,
Mhm.
and also just needed some time to really like self examine what was going on. And I just appreciated that because it would be really easy to like yell at them, throw them in a cart, be frustrated, and just go on where now you're frustrated, they're frustrated, everybody's mad. It's turning into sin because it's
Right.
pushed way past
Right.
just normal frustrations.
Mhm.
But instead, I saw you say, you know what, and you're not only maturity as a person, but just as a believer, you say, you know what, there's a bigger kingdom moment here
Yeah.
that I could step into as a parent,
Mhm.
and we could change the fact. And I've even seen you just completely leave the store before with our kids
Mhm.
mid shopping. You've called me and said, "Hey, we're actually going to come home.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait a little bit. I'll go back." Now that doesn't always work with our schedules and stuff, but you're willing, and I've always loved this about you. You're willing to, with our kids, push things around in order to prioritize gospel moments with our kids.
Mhm.
And it's grace that's the biggest part of those gospel moments with our
100%.
kids,
Yeah.
which has been so cool. And I am blessed. I consistently thank God for that because I am not always that way. The pastor is not always as gracious and empathetic and gospel minded as you are, my wife. So it has been a blessing to be able to watch you be that way with our
Thank you.
parents. Our kids are gonna turn out somewhat decent because of God's
Well,
grace.
not because of me.
No, God's
It's
grace
God's
and
grace.
your awareness of that more than mine
Yeah.
is what I was gonna say.
Yeah, which I mean, that was something that I loved that, Tripp had said somewhere in this chapter too, talking about how, um, he allows those kind of God allows tough situations to happen in parenting, the difficulties in parenting, because ultimately that is gonna point
Mm.
to God and to glorify him more, which can be helpful after the fact sometimes when you're in those things. You can just, "Okay, I'm just doing this to glorify God, doing this to glorify God."
Mm.
Kinda helps to reframe your mindset during those times.
Definitely. Well, we're gonna shift to the last topic of this whole
This
thing, which I
chapter.
think, man, that was pretty fast, but also pretty long at the same time. So sorry about that. But if you're like one of us, I think once you realize parenting exposes so much of what's inside of you, it's easy to look back and feel regret over
Mhm.
how you've responded in the past. And I would be remiss if I didn't step into this as a parent and just say, "Hey, like, we get it, we understand."
Oh, yeah.
But Tripp reminds us that grace also frees us from being stuck in
Mhm.
regret. And so many parents, no matter where you're at, you could be listening and you have teenagers, or maybe they're college, or maybe they're adults, and they have kids now, and you have grandkids, and you could feel so much regret in this, but Paul wants to remind us that the Bible teaches us that grace also frees us from being stuck
Mhm.
in that regret. Many parents live paralyzed by regret, but grace frees us to move forward. Page 49 of the book says this: what is it that regret tends to forget? Regret tends to forget that the cross of Jesus exists. And I love that statement. Like regret tends to exist that, hey, Jesus, he came, he did his thing,
Yeah.
and we don't have to be held down by that anymore. So we're going to end there. Grace isn't just something that covers our past. It's something that's alive and present in every hallway conversation, every car ride, every bedtime, dinner. Let's be honest, grace is needed at dinner with a little side of gravy, right?
Yep.
But that's where we want to land today. How grace meets us in everyday moments. Grace isn't just past or future, it's present right here, right now. So, Emily, final question for you. What's one way you can remind yourself this week, or you would suggest our parents to remind themselves this week, that God is with them in every parenting moment?
Hmm. Um,
Putting you on the spot.
I know.
You love this.
Um, I think I know I'll say for moms, but I know it's probably true for dads a lot of times too, is that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, that to try to get things perfect.
Mm,
That, we feel like we have such this limited amount of time with our kids, and just trying to make sure that we're doing everything the right way. And I think that that's right now where I'm at in life is how I've seen God's grace or His grace kind of challenging me is that, um, just because I have this idea in my head of what perfect should be doesn't mean that that's what it needs to be at. And God's grace can kind of help cover that and just to remind me both big picture wise and little picture wise that our kids are loved, our kids are taken care of, our kids are being shown who Jesus is, on a daily basis, and God is working in the midst of everything else, and to just kind of have a little bit of that pressure relief of, feeling like it's all on my shoulders because it's not.
mm. Yeah, I had a mentor tell me once that God is bigger than that one day, that one week, that year that
Yeah,
you struggle with your kids.
yeah,
Like Jesus is working it in you and in them, and it was never up to you in the first place.
exactly.
We are asked to partner. We are called to
Mhm.
partner in this to be ambassadors to our kids. That doesn't mean that we should be absent. That doesn't mean that we have a pass to mess up, or to like do things poorly. We should be intentional. We should go into parenting with strategy and plan
Yeah,
to follow God in all of these things. But at the same time, man, it's Jesus that changes our heart.
yep,
It's not Emily, it's not Dalton.
yeah,
Like we could be tools in the Father's hands for
yeah,
this, but it's not about us necessarily.
mhm,
It's about God working in and through us
yeah.
and our faith. So it's been really cool to partner with you in this. So I'm excited about it. I hope you got something from it. I'm excited because next
There's so
month
much more good stuff in the book
there's
too.
so much. We're only in chapter 2, and Jen and Mark, man, they covered a lot in the
Mhm.
preface
They did
in
a great
the
job.
in the chapter 1. But next month is gonna be in Florida.
You're just
Chino.
combining their
Combining their
names.
names. It's their celebrity
Celebrity
name.
name.
Chino and Jenna, yikes, are my brain are going to be up next. So I'm really excited to hear their perspective because if you don't know, their children are almost all in college or done with college. They have one left in high school.
Yeah,
So completely different than Mark and different than us.
yeah,
So we're kind of going in the age direction. Mark
kind
has
of.
young kids. We have a mix of kids. And then Chino,
Yeah.
his kids are older. So it's going to be good. Excited about it. But hey, I hope you're enjoying the box. I hope you're enjoying all of our curriculum. Our Lux team has been praying for you, caring about you. We're excited about everything to come, but keep checking out Called to Parent. We love you guys. We're praying for your parenting. Just remember, hey, it's not about you. It's about what Jesus is doing in and through you. Just got to be obedient to that. Love you guys. We'll catch you in the next episode.